Welcome back to What You'll Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
My name is Adam Jones. Today we are reviewing a very good book called Perennial Seller, The Art of Making and Marketing Work That Lasts by Ryan Holiday.
Mate, I actually haven't... This is the first Ryan Holiday book I've read. I've heard a few interviews with him. And whilst it's like... It's not that big a book. It's 200 pages or so. Mate, this is probably one of the biggest... most notes I've ever taken.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, man. I reckon comparing this advice to some other advice about making good shit, I reckon this is an absolute winner.
Oh, 100%, man. I wasn't expecting a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
But when I started reading it, I immediately found out it's a phenomenal book, and I assume all his other books are going to be amazing as well.
Mate, before we get stuck in, we got a funny email during the week. Got to read this out. Michael Donnelly. Just randomly emailed us. I've been listening to you guys for a couple of nights now. Came across you on iTunes looking for MJ DeMarco content. And he says, I love the Dan Pink review and we'll buy a copy of it. Anyways, tell your birds, fuck our neighbour to chill out. And guys, don't be a little bitch next time he starts bashing on the door. Mate, I'd say that's fair enough because we were fucking pussies.
Yeah, we're absolutely pussies, but so it's a throwback to the episode where we reviewed To Sally's Human, where I was doing it at my girlfriend's house, and the next door neighbour cracked it and he came in and tried to beat the shit out of us.
And mate, you wanted to cut
Before
it out.
then, I thought
you thought we were going to look like pussies.
Definitely, man. I didn't want everyone to hear me at my lowest moment. I want to be known as a warrior.
Mate, Michael says, love the banter and chemistry. I even found myself singing it to your shitty song about sharpening the saw. Love it. And you've got to go. I'm off to join the patron club. Mickey from Newcastle in the UK.
Yeah,
legend.
absolute champion.
Absolute bloody legend.
Bloody legend.
Yeah, Perennial Seller.
Yeah, so hit us with it, man.
Mate, so it's about, I guess, some things is sort of getting it done, just get a whole bunch of shit out there, throw it all out there, and eventually something's going to work. But this is like, no, you can't just put shit out there. You got to actually take the time and make something that's really good quality and something that's going to last.
That's right. So why do most creatives fall short of making work that lasts for more than 10 minutes? He says the truth is they never give themselves a real shot at it. They fail because strategically they never had a chance. They want to make something timeless, except they focus on the immediate payoffs.
Yeah, exactly, man. And there's a few, different people have talked about this over time. Like, there's a dude named Cyril Connolly in 1937 wrote about making lasting work, making great art. This other dude talked about things that are imperishable and changeless freshness and transcends time. Basically says that a perennial, by definition, is regardless of how well it does at the release, like at the initial launch, it continues to find success and more customers over time.
So whatever product you make, it will be highly valuable in 10 years' time. It's not just going to be something that just dies and then you lose and all your hard work just goes away. It's going to be there forever. He says it's a lot like gold or land. It actually increases in value over time because they are always of value to someone.
Man, he talks about a thing called the Lindy effect, which is named after this famous restaurant opened in 1921 in New York City, I believe. And it's interesting that every day more that something lasts, it increases the likelihood that it's going to keep lasting into the future. And so Nassim Taleb will have to do his books eventually. He says that every year essentially doubles the additional lifespan. So if something's been around for 50 years, it's probably going to be around for another 50 years.
That's it.
And so if you think of books like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and Effective Executive, they're 50 years old and still popular today. Or even How to Influence and Influence People is 80 years old.
Yes,
and
totally.
Still relevant today and probably going to be relevant in 80 or 50 years time from now as well.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, that's what Perennial Seller is making products that are going to stand the test of time. And one such example, and these are in every industry, he says, but Shawshank Redemption, for example, when it first came out in box office, was only shown about 1,000 times, and it was completely underwhelming in the first year or two. But over time, it has actually grown in value and then is now known as one of the best films of all time. And year after year now, it's making millions and millions of dollars years and years after it actually made it.
Man, another example is the Bowie Bonds. So David Bowie actually raised, a bank paid him $55 million to have the rights to his back catalogue for 10 years.
Yep.
So essentially they said they knew that not his new stuff, forget all the new stuff, all his old stuff, they were willing to pay him $55 million because they knew over the next 10 years they were going to get more than that back because it was just reliable that his old stuff was so perennial, people were going to keep seeking it out and keep buying it.
Yep. So yeah, that's what all the whole book's about. Part 1 of the book is about the creative process, which is from the mindset to the making of the magic.
Yeah. And it's super important to think that there's a lot of specific examples, but it's sort of for everything, man. He talks about that we're all selling ideas, whatever the form, the process is going to be the same. So we need to have these ideas that sell forever. And he says that some terrible advice that people get is, spend 20% of your time creating it and 80% of your time promoting it.
Yep.
And so they say, marketing is where it's all at. The product doesn't matter so much, but he's saying that's bullshit. You need to focus on the product.
Yeah, totally. Marketing and sales will completely fail if your product's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So it all begins with the product. And if the product's amazing, then it'll be much easier for people to pass it on to other people. And then your sales and marketing processes are pretty much done if you've got a good product.
Yeah. Mate, ideas are not enough in that he says that, ideas are cheap. Anyone can have one. But what he says is that, a quote from Austin Kleon, lots of people want to be the noun without doing the verb. So, lots of people say, I wish I could be a writer. Well, fucking write.
Yep.
Well, I want to be a singer. Well, start singing. And then it's sort of like this old school that the gatekeepers, you're waiting for the record label to pick you. You're waiting for a publisher to choose your book. But the important thing is to actually do the verb, do the writing, do the singing, create the music, create the films, whatever it is, actually get out there and do it.
Yep. And it's going to be absolutely bloody hard, he's saying. It's if you're going to make something that lasts, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot. It's just not going to get done. And you can't outsource this stuff either overseas.
Yeah.
You can't outsource your dating, for example, like I might have done in the past.
Mate, he talks about Seth Godin's The Dip, in that, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I'm sure there's plenty of get-rich-quick people who will happily sell to you courses about how you can, write a book in 2 days and start selling it, or, do anything that's short-term and try and make money off it quickly. But anything like that, whilst you might make a bit of money early, it's not perennial. Yeah. It's not going to be selling anything in 10 years' time from now. Yeah, you got to put your soul into it. A few examples he has here is what it might mean to make a perennial product. He says Elon Musk compares starting a company with eating glass and staring into the abyss of death. George Lucas, who created Star Wars, I think, was literally ripping his hair out when creating the films. And George Orwell is a really famous author. Said writing a book is a horrible, exhausting struggle, like being driven on by some kind of demon. Crazy, man. So if you're making real art, then this is the kind of process you need to go through. Mate, some other different examples that it's not just books or anything like that. That he talks about the Sistine Chapel. It took 4 years just to paint that one ceiling, which is not that big, but it's still 500 years later. So many people are still going out and checking it out. Same as the La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. Mate, Gaudi started working on it in 1882, and it's due for completion in 2026. So it's going to be a 140-year build. So he says, from sacrifice comes meaning, and from struggle comes purpose. If you're to create something important and powerful, you must be driven by an equally powerful inner force. Yeah. Nice, I love it, man. And then a super important thing is to focus on things that don't change. So find the timeless things in timely events. Mate, a criticism we had of crushing it is that all the examples are going to be out of date in 6 months. Whereas he talks about things like Seinfeld, where whilst the Seinfeld was made 20 years ago, actually more than 20 years ago now, the things are still relevant, like relationships between men and women, you and your friends hanging out, shit bosses, all this sort of stuff that's not going to change. Yeah. And so that's why it's still popular today, because it was timeless stuff. And he says, again, with the Lindy effect, if it's been around 20 years ago, it's more likely that it's going to be around for another 20. Yeah, exactly. And this comes up in the marketing section, but I'll drop it now anyway. Yeah. But emailing is one of those kind of examples with the Lindy effect. It's going to be around for another 20 years, but Instagram and Facebook, you never know, because it hasn't been around that long yet. Yeah, exactly. Very true, man. Mate, some important things to think about at the start of your project. So obviously, if you're going to make something perennial, it's going to be a bloody slog that's going to take you a fair amount of time. So you need to decide pretty quickly at the start these important things. So he says that you need to be able to say that any project, you need to know what you're doing, you need to know what you're not doing, you need to know who you're doing it for, and you need to know who you're not doing it for. Exactly. So you need a super clear idea. I'm doing this for these people. Yep, and that's a big failure that we've probably both fallen into in the past. But the question you got to start ask at the very start of the creative process is, who is this for? Yeah. Find your niche and scratch it. So he says some stage in the book, think of one specific person and then make the product for that person as your niche. Very nice. Don't go too wide. Another thing to think about at the start is the Blue Ocean Strategy, which is a book we haven't done yet, but we should. And that's saying that you could go out and battle with thousands of other competitors in the red, bloody water, or you can sail out to some blue water where there's no competition, and that's where you want to find that uncontested blue ocean. Yeah.
blue ocean, go for a quick swim.
Yeah.
He has another reference to another good book here, which I haven't read, but I know you have. The Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art. He says that the counterfeit innovator is widely self-confident. The real one is scared to death.
Yeah.
So when you're making a product and you're putting your real soul into it, you're going to be shit scared. And that's a natural part of the process when you're creating something that might be perennial. Because if it was part of the status quo, it's probably not going to be perennial, and that'll be safe.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly, man. And that's what you say. The counterfeit innovator is self-confident because they're not actually risking anything. Whereas a true innovator, they've put a hell of a lot of themselves into the project.
And it's going to divide an audience, he says. So if you put out a record and something like a record and half the people love it and half hate it, and he says you've done pretty well.
That's good,
because you know it's pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
So we kind of do that at the end of the episodes. Half people love it or hate it, but I don't know how perennial those songs are, man.
Mate, part 2
is positioning.
So from polishing to perfection to packaging. And he says that deep down we all harbour this fantasy. We want to be chosen, which we sort of talked about, but that's just not how it works anymore. And he says that any perennial seller is made by an artist who, instead of just handing off their manuscript to the publisher or any example like that, they see everything as their responsibility. Everything, they've got to take control of their own fate. Not simply as the artist, but also as the maker, also as the manager, also as everything else.
Yeah, it all comes down to you. And he keeps saying you can't outsource some of these important things.
Yeah.
So you're the CEO. There's no one who is going to come and save you for your product. It's your product, and if you want to make it work, it's up to you.
Yeah.
This isn't in the book, but say a book on a 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss, I think he got knocked down 39 times before
27.
it actually got out there. How much?
I think he said 27.
27.
Close enough. Yeah.
Close enough. But that's an example of a perennial book that actually got out there. And
Mate, I heard Chicken Soup for the Soul was like 150 or more.
Really?
That they got rejected, and now they've sold $200 million worth of books or some shit like that.
Yeah. Absolutely unbelievable.
And that's the thing, was that they didn't just say, okay, here, you're the publisher, you go take this out and do it. They said, no, we're going to actually...
You got to take it in your own hands. And a big part of the creative process at the start is finding your editor.
Yeah. He says that there's a few quotes here. Ernest Hemingway said the first draft of anything is shit.
Yeah.
Nobody creates flawless first drafts, and nobody creates better second drafts without the intervention of something else. So that's why you need to find that somebody else to, whilst you think it's perfect, there's a hell of a lot of improvement that could be made.
So there's a bit of a paradox there. Whilst the chances of success and failure might sit on you, you must undertake this difficult task of finding someone to review your work.
Yeah, that's
And at this stage, you might have spent a long time and gone through this grueling process of building something that you thought was amazing. Then you push it out to some people and they say it's shit.
Yeah.
You just got to cop it and then go back through the process if you want to make something sick.
Mate, just when you think you're done, you often find that you're not even close to being finished. Man, that's what I remember another, I don't know why we keep mentioning bloody Tim Ferriss. But Tim Ferriss, he said that, he was telling one friend when he was writing the 4-hour work week, a friend asked him how it's going, and he said, yeah, it's good. Tim said, I'm like 90% done. And the friend's like, cool, you've got about 50% to go then. Just because even though you think you're close to being finished, there's a hell of a lot that you don't know what's to come.
Yeah, totally, man. And he says, and this goes against my grain a little bit, but he says you must deliberately forsake all other missions. If your goal is to make a masterpiece, like something amazing, a perennial seller for a specific audience, it follows that you can't also hope that it is trendy of the moment side hustle. It just can't be something on the side. You've got to kind of forsake all other missions, all other side projects, your day-to-day job, and put everything into this thing that you're trying to make.
Yeah. He does sort of talk about earlier on about always testing, constantly testing and like MVP sort of stuff. So it's not just like you think this is going to be perennial and just go for it. You still got to keep in mind those things that you got to test stuff, you got to try different things out, you got to constantly tweak it. But he's sort of saying that you got to commit to this one thing. You can't just be something on the side that you do for 2 hours a week. It's got to be fucking.
It's gonna be a lot of sacrifice involved with this stuff.
Mate, he talks about the 3 Ps: positioning, which he says is what your project is and who it's for. Packaging is what it looks like and what it's called, and then the pitch is the sell. So how you describe it and how you tell an audience what it's going to offer them.
Yeah. So that's what you need to get the audience's attention.
And
I think he's actually a marketing background.
Yeah, he is. Right? Yeah, very much so. And what I thought was interesting, man, he says that anything that you create, you're not just competing against all the new stuff. So you're not competing against all the books that are being written right now, or you're not competing against all the songs that people are producing right now. You're competing against everything that's ever been made.
Yeah.
Because it's not someone's not going to the top 10 best-selling books and picking one of them. They're going to go to the top 10 best-selling books of all time and see if yours is better than that or not.
Yeah. If you're writing something in self-help, you're competing with 7 Habits.
Yeah.
Or if you're writing music, you're competing with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to realize that you're not just competing against new shit, you're competing against everything that's ever been made.
Yep. Part 3 of the book is marketing, from courting to coverage and pushing to promotion.
And mate, another interesting thing, that a quote from the book 0 to 1, again, we haven't done it yet, but he says that if Peter Thiel talks about, if you walk into a company and if you don't see any salespeople around, then you're the salesperson. So again, back to what we were saying about taking responsibility, taking ownership. You're the CEO. You're also the salesperson. You're the marketer.
Yeah, it's
you're
your
everything.
product.
It's your stuff, and you got to go out there and push it yourself.
It all falls down on you. So a lot of the hard work's been done now. So up till now, you've gone through, as Elon Musk said, you've eaten glass, gone through excruciating pain. Hopefully you survived this process, but you're in an elite club now. You've made something that's amazing, but if you don't do the next part of marketing, then it really won't get to the point where it's perennial, and it's up to you to go out there and do the marketing and selling.
Mate, there's a quoted quote from the field of dreams: "Build it, and they will come." But Peter Thiel was saying, just because you build something doesn't mean a customer's going to come along and buy it necessarily. The hard part is actually getting. Yeah, it is a shame. He says you've got to make that happen yourself, and it's harder than it looks.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there at the moment.
Yeah,
it's
and
hard
mate, that's
get
another
through
thing.
that noise.
He says you got to remember, nobody cares about what you've made for a few reasons. Firstly, how could they possibly know what it is if you don't go out there and tell them? Also, you got to remind yourself people are busy. As much as we hate to say it, people have got other priorities.
Yeah,
and essentially, it's your job to make people care. People have been burnt many times before of some salesperson coming over and saying this is the best product you'll ever have, and they've been burnt.
Yeah.
So they're resistant to it. So you got to make them. You got to show them. You got to make them believe.
Totally. And for Ryan, he says that the best marketing strategy, he doesn't really care so much about the paid kind of advertising. He says the only thing that works, if you think about anything you've ever really bought, and that's word of mouth.
Yeah, very much purple cow. He says that anything that you're doing should be with the aim to generate more word of mouth. So get someone to tell someone else about it.
Yep. So organic, natural recommendations of the product should be the goal of the whole marketing plan from the very start.
Mate, so McKinsey, a big management consulting firm, in their studies, they said between 20 and 50% of all purchasing decisions happen from some version of word of mouth. And they said that a high impact recommendation, so someone strongly recommending it that you trust, converts 50 times better than regular marketing. So that's phenomenal, man.
Yep. He says when you're launching your perennial product, a launch date might be a good idea.
Yeah. And it's sort of like that thing that there's so much out there. And whilst a launch is completely artificial, that you can, once you've put your product out there, it can be bought at any time. This artificial launch, a bit of scarcity, a bit of excitement around it, is what can get it sort of moving, and that people buy what other people are buying. If that makes sense. So they go for things that feel like they've got momentum, and having this launch feels like it's got momentum. It feels like other people are choosing it at the moment, so they jump on board too. And
he says repetition is really important. So when you launch it, you want to be hit from all kind of angles, where there might be Facebook, Instagram, email, podcasts, or anything like that, just so they keep being reminded that the product's actually out there and you need to buy it.
And that's what Ben Horowitz said of Andreessen Horowitz, the VC firm, I believe. He says there is no silver bullet when it comes to marketing, so you're going to have to use a hell of a lot of lead bullets. Yeah. So there's no one thing that's going to work, so you've got to try a whole bunch of stuff. You've got to do everything. And
one of those things might be free. And that's just saying that free can actually be a good thing. So
yeah, you got to be comfortable to give someone a little bit of a taste of what you got.
Yep. And the biggest problem for artists isn't privacy. It's more about obscurity. Yeah. If people don't know you exist, then you got no hope from the start. So free is a good way of getting your foot in the door. And an example of that might be podcasts, for example.
I know he talks about Paulo Coelho, the alchemist, in that he actually made a whole bunch of he spread a whole bunch of fake, I think, Russian translations of The Alchemist. And he wasn't worried that people were going to take his stuff and copy it, because he knew if someone got a taste of it and really liked it, he's got 20 other books that they can buy as well. Yeah. So giving someone a free taste is not something to be worried about.
Yeah, and you're really not asking them nothing. They're actually giving an investment when you make something free. They're giving their time out of the day to go out and read it. So don't just expect just because you made something for free, they're all going to come running in. You got to make sure the free stuff's bloody good as well.
Yeah, mate, there's a funny story about 50 Cent. I didn't realise 50 Cent used to be a bloody serious drug dealer, man. So what 50 Cent used to do, there was a few gangs dealing drugs. So 50 Cent used to send his blokes out, bash up another gang, steal their cocaine. And so he would get the stolen cocaine, give it out to everyone in the neighbourhood for free. And then they'd have a taste. They get hooked on coke, and 50's the only guy left who's selling drugs because he's fucking destroyed all the other gangs.
Yeah,
man, that's good marketing.
It's phenomenal marketing, man. I don't know how real that is, to be honest.
It must be. Mate, 50's been shot 6 times. That's all.
Yeah, that's true.
Mate, and
real
he
shit.
says that the next section is if it's not free, then make it cheap. And he asks the question, what's the right price for a perennial seller? And Ryan argues that it should be as cheap as absolutely possible without damaging the perception of the product.
Yes.
So obviously there's sort of like the standard. Books are between 20 and 30 bucks. It might only cost you $3 to print it, but if you're selling a book for $3, there's going to be a negative perception about why is this book so cheap. Yep. So you got to sell it as cheap as possible. Don't make it $80 because that's beyond the realms of possibility, I guess.
Totally. So yeah, attention is one of the biggest goal here. Another one of the strategies he's got in this section is reaching out to influencers.
Yeah.
And with that, you need to make them look good like a badass. So be careful about who you choose to partner with your product for branding purposes.
Man, it was interesting that he said that the most important thing about using influencers is not to get them to sell stuff. So it's not to partner with Gary Vee so that he sells 10,000 copies of your book, but it's to get a 2-sentence quote from Gary Vee on the front cover of your book. So then you've got that social proof. So other people say, oh, Gary Vee must think this is legit, then this is worth buying. Yep. It's not to ask Gary to sell 10,000 copies for you.
He says creative advertising is probably the least competitive sector of advertising because most brands aren't creative or afraid to be.
Mate, most brands with a lot of money just do the basic stuff because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to do anything too wild that might not work.
Yeah. They'll if you pay another firm to go and do your marketing, they'll probably do the traditional path.
Yeah.
This is off the notes, but shout out to a mate, Adam Walsh, who started Squash, and their type of advertising on the way to a Porty Polo event, big one in Portsea. They had a pool on the middle of the road, were swimming around in these shorts, got a whole bunch of hot chicks in bikinis, made a little video. Then everyone on the way to the event stopped past and looked at them. And then in the actual event, everyone was talking about who are those crazy people out the front, half naked, just swimming around. And that was something that probably cost under $1,000.
Oh, it would have been.
But
cheap,
I think they just had, a lot of sales just from that one event.
That's awesome, man. That's as you say, something different that's people can talk about. That's word of mouth right there.
Totally creative. Part 4, man.
Part 4 is platform. So from fans to friends to a fully fledged career.
Yep.
So he talks about, like Kevin Kelly talks about 1,000 true fans, and he's talking about you need to find a small group of people that are going to be your first customers in anything that you do.
Yep. So he said, what is a platform? It's the ability to access and draw upon assets, whether they are social media, email lists, phone calls, or even, asking a favor of a friend. So these are all your assets from your platform. So what resources can you pull together to push this product you've made?
Mate, and it was interesting that he says that, all lists, so that could be, your social media following, it could be a whole bunch of friends that you know, it could be a whole bunch of phone numbers you got, it could be your email list. He says that all lists vary in size and quality, but they all have one thing in common, and that they all start at 0.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. If you think, it's too hard to build an email list, every email list out there started at 0. Yeah,
that's right. He stresses big time that the importance of email lists.
Yeah. And as you said, the Lindy effect, email's been around for 50 years, whereas social media's been around for 10 years. And so it's sort of like email's a lock.
He says this is your lifeline when it's good or bad. If you've got a decent enough email list in bad times, you can push out an email.
Yeah.
And you can sell some products.
Mate, a few strategies. He says, put a link to your email list in all your email signatures. So every time you send it out, people will see, I can sign up to his list. Post on social media that you've got a list. Ask people to join your weekly newsletter, create a physical form and hand it around. But obviously, you need to give good shit. You can't just,
Yep.
Yeah.
Give good free shit.
Yeah.
Mate, what else you got for us?
I think just to finish it off, man, he says at the end, like once you've made your perennial seller and it's out there, the important thing is to think about your next perennial seller. Because he says here, it's not enough to make one great work. You should try to make the most of it, but you should also try to make a lot of it. So very few of us can afford to abandon our gift at the first attempt and just hope that our legacy is secured. And we shouldn't either, because it should be fun. We should enjoy it, and we should get a lot out of helping other people. And we should want to do it again and again and again.
Man, this was a really, really good book. It really did shift my I guess, attitude to making things.
Yeah.
In the past, I'd be very much on the, so say if you got a spectrum, you got get it right or get it done.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I'll be on the get it done. So like a bull, you know, you do a lot of work and then you get a lot of stuff out quickly, but it's not something that's going to be as good as it could be. Whereas this is about make sure it's right. So then whatever work you're doing now, in 5 years' time, you can still reap the benefits of it.
Yeah. I think it's important, man. I think early on, getting into the habit of getting it done is super important because you should be able to have that ability to get something done.
Yeah, procrastination is probably the worst out of everything.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think that once you've started getting it done and you're getting a lot of stuff out there, then you transition towards getting it right, getting it perennial. That's put in, you know, he says that, you know, if you're writing a book that you want to sell for 20 years, taking an extra 2 weeks to slow down and do it properly is going to seem like nothing at the end.
Yeah, totally. Mate, this got to number 21 out of our top 50.
Yeah.
And our top 50 is absolutely amazing. 21 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you saw the...
From 1 to 20,
or the 29 after that, you'd be very surprised.
Mate, I reckon it's phenomenal, man. As I said, I wasn't quite expecting it either.
Yeah, I was expecting just another book.
Stuff before, and I reckon it's great stuff, man. Absolutely legendary.
Well, should we sing the song of the holiday?
Mate, is this song going to last for 50 years?
This will last the millennia. Mate, when we're dead, they'll be singing this song. We'll wait and see. Oh, yeah.
Make a perennial seller, yeah. Don't do a piece of shit. Take your time and make some really good stuff. Yeah. Gonna sell forever.
Now Elon Musk. He smashed that glass and put it in his breakfast. He chewed it and it felt like he was making a product that is perennial.
At the start, you need to decide. I'm doing this. I'm doing it for these people. And make that thing that's in the blue ocean, not in the competitive red water. Yeah.
For the people now, we're doing it now for the people now.
You're the CEO, take responsibility for your own work. If you don't see any salespeople, guess what? You're the salesperson. Do it all yourself. You gotta take responsibility.
You gotta take responsibility.
What you've done.
You gotta take responsibility for what you do now. When you make a product, you make it like. Don't just get it done, make it right for the years to come.
Everything you do should be with the aim to generate the word of mouth.
Oh yeah.
There's no silver bullet, so guess what? Shoot a fucking lot of lead bullets. Just shoot them everywhere. Oh,
shoot everyone now. Shoot everyone now. Kill. Oh yeah.
If you're a cocaine dealer, then go to other gangs and steal their shit and give it out for free. Make a lot of addicts. You're the only guy that they
give me cocaine.
That's the best fucking marketing.
Oh, coke, give me cocaine. Yeah, that's perennial. Cocaine's perennial.
Make cocaine that lasts for 20 years and 50 years, 100 years, 200 years or more.